Awesome. Well, Hannah, it is great to be with you. And we're talking about a topic that a lot of people don't think about as part of their investment strategy, and that is the impact of time. So, can you tell us a little bit about kind of how time impacts our investments and maybe some of the things that your clients don't really understand that you like to walk them through as you're building their wealth building strategy?
Yes, well, we do have to remember that the number one key wealth building principle is compound interest. With compound interest, you have two factors. You have money, obviously, you have to have a little bit of money to grow. And then the second one is time. Now, remember, a lot of people when we're younger, we're just starting out our lives or marriages, having kids. A lot of people don't want to save and put money away for retirement or down the road or for savings. And that's where a lot of people start hindering themselves without even knowing it, because we have to have that time for that money to grow. So even if it's $5 a day, that's super important to start that not only habit, but also to help that $5 to start to grow. So even if you have $5 a day, $150 a month, that's going to really help your money jumpstart growth, so that the balance at near the end, when you want to actually start taking that out and living off of that, will have all those years to grow. You don't have to start with a ton of money. So remember, compound interest is money rolling down a snowy hill. It compounds on itself, but it has to have that time in order to constantly compound on itself. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I guess as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, all sorts of people will watch this video. Is there a certain point in time where, it's too late? I'm not really going to benefit from compound interest. What would you tell somebody that's watching this that maybe thinks they've missed the boat?
Totally understand. There's a lot of different strategies that we can do depending on what resources an individual has. So is it ever too late? Maybe for what you're wanting to have happen, but there's other ways that we can accomplish setting you up for success. For example, I had a client that I was meeting with, and they said, you know what, we're full of debt. I'm trying to get my business off the ground. There's no way that I can actually start contributing to any kind of savings or retirement. And I was like, well, can you save $5 a day? And they were like, well, yeah, we'll stop going to Starbucks so much. We don't have to go out to eat so much. I'm sure we could come up with $150 a month and figure that out. And I said, perfect, because that $150 times 8% over a 40-year time span adds up to about $500,000. Especially if you put it in the right tools that embrace that compound interest and where you never lose. Now, that's where a lot of people say, well, I'm already in my 40s. I'm already in my 50s. I don't have 40 years for that growth. Great. There's other tools out there that we can utilize to actually put that money in and have a dramatic increase of growth. It might not be tax-free. It might not, and it could be. We don't know. It just depends on how much money you have accessible and where it's coming from. But there's a lot of different strategies. The point is starting as soon as possible. There is an old saying that if you want to sit underneath the shade of a tree, when did you need to plant that seed for the tree? 20 years ago, right? But if you want to sit underneath the shade of a tree in the future, when do you need to plant that seed? Today, right? The worst thing you can do is do nothing. If we do something to get that ball rolling down that hill, or to get that money growing and working for you in a different tools or strategies, the better off you will be. The worst decision you can make is no decision at all.
Okay, well, that makes sense. And as you're talking about the $5 a day, I mean, I can certainly see that, even that small amount would add up over time. Is there a certain amount or maybe percentage of income that you would recommend people start to save to really maximize the benefit of that compound interest?
If you're under the age of 40, a good $5 to $10 a day is ideal, because $10 a day is only $300 a month. And people might think, oh my gosh, that's $300. I could do a lot with $300 a month. Sure, I'm sure you could. However, what kind of a retirement? How are you going to want to live down the road? That $300 a month can add up to thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars down the road, depending on what we plan to do with it. So we're in such a now society that we've got to shift our mindset to not how little can I contribute to get a result in the end. It's what's the result we want and how can I prioritize to make sure that that happens to live the life that I want to live in the future. We're in the mindset of we'll worry about the future later when it comes. And we've got to remember that that's really setting people up for disaster down the road and to where they're never retiring, or they're retiring, running out of money and having to go back to work, and they're never living the fullest lives that they wanted to down the road. So we really have to start thinking priorities over, do I really need this today? Do I really need to spend that money today? Or can I do something with it to make sure I can live the high life in the future and the life that I want to live in the future? So is there a set amount for everybody? Absolutely not. It really depends on what your retirement looks like. Are you going to travel the world in your retirement? Okay, well, then we need to set a realistic budget for that. Or are you going to have everything paid off and you're going to just live in your house and just relax and do the fun activities you want to do? That's not going to really increase your monthly expenses. Awesome. I have people that want to do RVing around the United States. That's really low overhead. So do they need to put that much away in retirement? Not necessarily. So it really depends on what your retirement plan is, what your budget is, and your style of living that you want down the road. And that way we can use those tools of the time value of money and compound interest, reverse engineer to make sure that the amount that we're putting away today makes sense for what our expectations are down in the future.
Awesome. Well, anything else on the topic of kind of time and money and compound interest that you'd like to share with your clients that you want to share with the audience today?
It's just the main thing is just to get started. The worst thing you can do is wait. The worst thing you can do is, oh, I'm going to see what other strategies are out there. There's a ton of different strategies out there. Pick the one that best makes sense to you and what you're wanting to look into, or how you're wanting to live your life. For example, I look at 4 different things when I help people with their financial strategy. I looked at liquidity, making sure you have access to it not only now, but later. Number 2 is taxes. I don't put a lot of money, of people's money, in deferred accounts, because that means you're paying higher tax rate down the road on all that money, and you're paying taxes potentially throughout your entire life. Nobody wants to do that. Plus, we don't know what the tax rate is going to be in the future, because taxes are always going up, it seems, not down. So we don't want to actually make ourselves liable for all those taxes down the road. The third one is return on investment. We want to make sure that you're getting the return on investment that you want. And the fourth one, which is a major one, is it safe? A lot of people waste so much time putting their money in tools where their money is lost. And it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. Every single time it goes down, the market or whatever strategy you have has to grow twice as much for you to get that money back. And when you're waiting for that money to come back, you're wasting time. And what is one thing we will never get back in our lives? You can't buy it and you can't find it. It's time. So making sure we are utilizing the time we have with the money that we have and building something. It doesn't have to be grand, or it doesn't have to be small. Whatever fits your unique situation and what your wants are in the future, build something so that you have something to fall on if you need it.
Awesome. Well, you talked about the importance of getting started, and I know that it's very easy to get started with HLJ Growth. You can go to the website, you can scan the QR code, and you can book that appointment. And I think that sounds like a great next step for somebody that maybe isn't sure, hey, am I investing enough? Or I don't even know where to get started. Or, hey, maybe just a quick checkup to see if I have all my bases covered and I'm invested in the right thing. So again, appreciate the time and the insight on this important topic. And we invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more advice just like this in future videos. So thanks again, Hannah.
You're welcome.